I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Right. I think this, are there more people being let in? No, I'll start. Welcome. There are 111 people registered for this event, which is absolutely amazing. And what I don't know is how many of you are sort of new to PR or wanting to get into it, and how many of you are sort of, old hacks like me, or, in mid-career. So it would be very helpful if you just put in the chat box if you're, if you're wanting your first job in PR. It would be good to know if there are any of you who are doing that. Few things that the 5 CPD points for attending this. It will be recorded. I will be writing something up for LinkedIn when after the event. There'll be time for questions at the end. We've got 4 absolutely wonderful panelists who've got very, very varied experience. So I'm going to go and ask them to introduce themselves one by one now. So we'll start with Richard Bailey.
Well, I guess I'm a recovering public relations lecturer, but I've done other things. I came into public relations because I'd been a journalist writing about technology. And so I almost handpicked where I wanted to work, which was technology PR. Many decades ago, moved rather into education and training and then university lecturing.
Right. And how did you get your first job?
Well, I was interviewing execs of tech companies and saw these PR people in the room not doing much and earning more than me, and I thought I was a bit jealous that I could do that. So, that used to be a very familiar world, and that I think was the world you're familiar with. You start in journalism, you see these PR people, you think you can do their job. You don't realize it isn't journalism, it isn't the same job. But we can come back to that.
Okay. Right. Justine.
Hi, well, I've had a very, very mixed career. So I worked in the public sector, cultural sector, charity sector, commercial, charity, started my own business, and now I'm back in the commercial sector. So I've been around the houses, working predominantly in comms and in marketing as well. So yeah, been gosh, I think it's well over 25 years now, covering corporate comms, communication manager, doing everything and anything, being within a team, leading a team. So yeah, it's a very, very mixed background, and yeah, happy to be here talking to everyone.
Okay, and how did you get your first job?
How did I get my first job? I got a place on a graduate training scheme. So that got me in because I had a very strange, well, not strange degree. I really enjoyed it. But I did human movement of my degree, which got absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with comms or marketing. But within that, I did a module on sports marketing. And I thought, oh, actually, I really do like this. I'm quite good at it. I did really, really well in that. So when I was leaving university, I knew I didn't want to go into teaching, which is what the majority of my peers were doing. So I thought, well, if I don't want to teach, I've got no desire to be a PE teacher. What can I do? And this was in the very, very early days of things like sports science, going back a long time now. And I thought, well, I really enjoyed this marketing and communication side. So I managed to get a place on a graduate training scheme, which got me in the door to do focus on communication.
Josie.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here. My name's Josie. At the moment, for the last 3 years, have been working as a senior brand and communications manager at Home Protect, which is a specialist home insurance company, kind of in the insurtech space as well. But I've had, quite like Justine, sort of a bit of a squiggly kind of mixed career prior to that. So I was in aviation and travel for about 10 years prior, doing a combination of sort of marketing and comms kind of / PR roles. And I've worked in a couple of other sectors as well. So kind of moved around a bit, tried some different things. And in terms of sort of getting into my first job, I tried and failed to get on some kind of big graduate schemes, but I did get my first job within a startup research and recruitment consultancy, which was brilliant, like a really good kind of way to go into quite a hands-on role in a kind of growing business, and then went from there. I'm sure we'll go into that in a bit more detail later.
Right, and now Darren.
Hi everyone, nice to see you. 29 years in comms now, so I'm very elderly, and really varied background. Started in the agency world, did some private sector utilities. Kind of found myself in local government, and I was a head of comms in local government for 11 years. I did a director of comms role in the NHS for a couple of years. And then 10 years ago, I set up my own consultancy, as lots of us do. And I do all sorts of consultancy training, mentoring, recruitment, events, awards, all sorts of things, really.
Yeah, you haven't mentioned what it's called.
I run a website called Comms 2.0, which if people haven't heard of it, do take a look at that. There's plenty of resources, lots of jobs on there. So anybody on the call today that's looking for jobs or interim work, there is some new ones being added this afternoon, actually, after this webinar. So yeah, my first job in PR. I did a PR degree back in the early 90s. So I graduated in the summer of 96. And it was the Euro 96 football tournament. So I wrote a letter to the Football Association, because this is how long ago it was. I wrote an actual letter to ask for some work experience, and ended up getting some paid for work on the football tournament. So that was me. Obviously, times have changed a lot since then.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, one thing I want to ask people is if they've encountered any obstacles in their career, because as we know, career PR, like a lot of careers, isn't something where you get your first job and you sort of advance upwards. It can be very squiggly, and it's not an easy area to work in. So I'm going to kick off with Justine.
Yeah. So in terms of what would the question is, how you develop your career through?
It's if have you encountered any obstacles in your career?
Obstacles, that's it. Well, start off with, very honest, I am partially deaf, and that I'm going back even further than Darren did. So at that time, this was well before the Disability Discrimination Act. So I actually didn't get my first choice of degree. I wanted to do communication at that time, and I didn't get a place in the course. I was rejected from every university that I applied to. So I took a year out and then came back and did something completely different, which was a human movement and sports side. And then when I was applying for my first job, it is challenging now, but my God, trying to get a job if you had a disability back in the early 90s was nigh on impossible. It was really, really difficult. But I mean, not putting you off it. I looked for organisations which were a little bit more open-minded, which is why I went and I managed to get the graduate training scheme, and that was linked with the public sector, working with a number of organisations across the public sector. So I got in there, and that allowed me to prove my worth, so to speak. So kind of the learning from that was now employers are a lot more open-minded, and it's showing your capabilities and what you can do, as opposed to focusing on what people might think you can't do. And that is, I've gone through my career, has been the thing that's just evidencing this is what I've achieved, is the work that I've done. So it's quite really important to kind of keep a little record somewhere of what you managed to do, either in kind of your own time or in work time as well. So everything. Not everything has to be based on what you're doing in your day job. There are a lot of things you'll get involved in around your life, and like what how is there voluntary work that you're doing? Are you how are you spending your free time? Are you involved with a sport club? Are you involved with a school if you're a parent or something like that? It's like evidencing what you're doing and using those opportunities to show what you can do. So that, I mean, every time you go for a job, you've got to say, evidence, this is what I can do. So collecting that evidence right from day one. So what people can see, because going into a career which is focused on people talking and listening when you can't always hear what's being said, back when I first starting my career, that would people just thought, kind of what's the point? But if you manage to get that, nudge your door open a little bit, get your foot in there and try that. So be that, getting voluntary experiences with different organisations and getting that evidence on your CV of what you can do. And that's a massive help, because then it means you're focusing on the positive as opposed to someone thinking about the negative. So it's always steering the conversation about the things that you want to talk about and showing off what you can do.
That is really, really helpful. It's a lot of people don't think that work, stuff you do in your spare time is actually helpful. So that's Darren. Have you got anything experience of obstacles in your career?
Yeah, well, so many. How long have we got? I think it's just things touched upon. I think it's different for different people, isn't it? So can talk about the barriers that I've had or barriers that I've seen, sort of friends and colleagues have. I think for me, honestly, back in the very early days, I think having a regional accent was a barrier. Now, having a Brummie accent now is fine because, Peaky Blinders happened and it's seen as being okay now. But the world of PR was a bit snooty back then, if I'm honest. And I honestly think having a Brummie accent didn't get me some jobs in the very early days. Maybe I just interviewed really badly and I'm using that as an excuse. But yeah, I think experience, when you don't have the experience, getting the experience that a job requires or a job description demands, I think that's a really tricky one. And I think if you're going from a kind of an officer level and you're trying to get to a manager level, or from a manager to a head of service or a director, I think those jumps, there are barriers. And I think once you get that first higher position, the next one is much, much easier to get. But I think the initial jump, and I think just overall, just getting people to believe in you. And there's, lots of things, and we'll discuss it further in the webinar, I'm sure, but getting people to believe in you is an absolute barrier.
Yeah, I'm just going to open this up. I just want to know if Richard or Josie want to chip in. Do you think there are barriers like ageism, ethnicity, social background? I mean, have you come across any of that?
Well, I'll agree. There are all of those things, but I think I'm going to give you a universal barrier. I'm going to give you one that everyone does experience and everyone will experience, and it's a really challenging one. And it relates back to that thing I said. I was the journalist. Now, an underpaid journalist. Darren's been there as well, a regional, local journalist. You don't earn much. You don't have much status in society. But when you go into that meeting with a very powerful chief exec, you feel like the apex predator, all right? Psychologically, the journalist feels like they have some power and influence. Then you take on a PR job, a comms job, and you cannot be brusque. You cannot be rude. You cannot be offensive to anyone. No, not to anyone, ever. The person you're interviewing may in a decade or so be interviewing you. You just can't afford to be as rude and brusque as you are entitled to be as a journalist. So psychologically, you are bottom of the food chain in every PR and comms job, even director of comms of an NHS trust, Darren mentioned. You are answerable to other people and you can't answer back. And I do think psychologically, that's a big shift from journalism, and it's a big challenge to everyone. It's a big barrier to everyone in every PR and comms job. And sorry, don't want to overspeak, but just to go back to education, in education, we have to give everyone lots of positives, all right? We have to give them feedback. We have to sugarcoat things that might be negative, a bit of positive feedback, then you embed the negative, then you end with something positive. I'm not sure that's preparation for this world that is really quite rough and tough. You are going to get a lot of negative feedback in any and every PR and comms job. You're going to get it from bosses. You'll get it from line managers. You'll get it from the public, you'll get it from influencers, you'll get it from journalists, you'll get it from everyone else, and you can't give back. And I think psychologically, that's what's so tough. That's a barrier everyone will face. So it's not about disability, it's not about class, it's not about accent, but it's universal. It's about status of PR and comms roles. So that's a tough one to throw in, but that's my contribution.
No, it's interesting. Josie, very quickly, have you got anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, I think in terms of obstacles, particularly in sort of the current, where we are now, what I'm seeing is that job descriptions just seem to be getting longer and longer, and employers seem to want an awful lot. And I guess my reflection on that would be, I think it can be really tricky if you're in that mindset of thinking, oh, I need to tick all of these boxes or kind of have all of this experience. I think that's harder in today's world where there's roles are being perhaps expanded, or there's kind of being more put into that. And what I would say is to sort of build on Justine's point around think more holistically about the experience you have, think creatively about what you've done outside of work. It doesn't necessarily need to have been that thing that you've done in a prior job. It may be that you could show really transferable skills from what you've done outside of work or in another area of your life. And I think that can be a good way perhaps to sort of get a bit more confidence with applying for jobs and sort of feeling like that's going to be less of an obstacle. And I'd also say don't be put off by some of the sort of stats that you see on LinkedIn in terms of number of people have applied, because I think that's a bit of a red herring in terms of people that have sort of looked at the role but not necessarily applied. So just in case anyone needs a bit of a confidence boost in what is, I think, a pretty tricky job market, that's what I think about.
Right, that moves on quite smoothly to question for Richard about how important are qualifications. I mean, you've talked about this a little bit already, and just tell us what's happening with PR degrees. I think that's quite important, but generally, how important is education?
Well, we've had a good 30-year run. Darren was there in the 1990s. There was the upswing, early 2000s. We recruited really well onto PR degrees. Right now, you can't apply to go on one. I mean, single honours public relations doesn't exist anymore. So we've had good times, we've had growth, we've had decline. There it is. That's just how it is. Are degrees still useful? I think graduateness is the thing that employers want. And you don't need a degree to demonstrate graduateness. It's about curiosity. It's about self-reliance. It's about your ability to go find out things. In some ways, just having a degree, we've hit peak degree. Just having a degree, just having a piece of paper doesn't show much individuality, much self-reliance. It just shows you've gone through the system. So no, I don't think you actually do need a degree. Qualifications are different. I think you can build on experience, gain a qualification. I've just marked some CIPR Foundation Award scripts for PR Academy. Now that's pitched at A-level standard academically, but it's for people who are perhaps in a first role gaining a qualification because they're working, because they've applied a bit of experience to the qualification. That level is better than I get from first or second year undergrads. So you could be 2 years into a full-time degree, you've built up tens of thousands of debt, and you're not as good as someone who's in a first job getting an A-level equivalent qualification. So qualifications, great. CIPR has a suite of these, and this is a CIPR call. They're great because you're applying real-world experience to a problem and understanding academic principles based on having gained some real-world experience. Just understanding principles, just understanding how to pass a university assignment.
Is it worth saying that there are quite a lot of marketing degrees that have public relations sort of within them?
Yeah. The single honours public relations degree is gone, and perhaps that's not a problem in a world that is so messed up. You know, I think several of you spoke about doing marketing, branding, comms jobs, not pure PR. So no, that's not a problem. But you know, Darren got in and got out at a good time and without substantial debt. Just briefly to come back to that, sorry to make it a private chat, but 1996, I was in a well-paid director role of an age PR consultancy with offices on Trafalgar Square, and I booked tickets right through Euro 96, right up to and including the final. So that semi-final, England against, was it still West Germany or was it Germany? No, Germany. Germany was probably a footballing highlight of mine at the old Wembley Stadium. But well done, writing your letter to the FA, getting work experience. Degrees have been great, and I've been involved teaching on them for 20 years. But I think probably we've had peak degree. That's my view.
Right. Next question is
Sorry,
how-
Justine wanted to come back there.
Yeah. Do you want?
Yeah, I would just
Yeah.
echo. I mean, I've been involved in recruiting people into a number of roles within.
Oh, have you? Yeah. Yeah.
So looking at it from an employer point of view or an manager point of view, I have to agree. I don't necessarily look for someone who has a pure comms or marketing or PR degree at all. What I'm looking for, if they've got a degree, that's brilliant because it shows a certain level of aptitude. That shows a certain level of ability, thinking ability, able to research, able to take material and do something. So a degree is good. I come from with a human movement degree, but it is more someone having CPD qualification, someone having industry, sector specific qualification stands out higher. So if someone comes with a CIPR or a CIM or Mark Ritson qualification, mini MBA or something like that, someone who has shown got the work industry qualification will stand out higher because they're showing that they have experience and they have applied that experience within a qualification context to get a certificate to show that they evidence that they can do X. That stands out. But I have to say, a degree, I'm not belittling degree, a degree is definitely a really, really good thing, but it doesn't have to be in marketing, comms or PR to stand out.
That is welcome news. Right, I'd like to next question is, what skills do people who are working in the PR industry need in today's market? I'm going to kick off with Josie there.
Yeah, so I do think it depends a little bit on the sort of sector or industry that you're in, but I do think there are some kind of universal things. For example, great relationship building, communication skills, creativity, tenacity, flexibility, being able to work with changing priorities, stakeholder management, really, really critical. I think whatever kind of business or organization you're working in, all of those things are really key. However, the thing that I would sort of add based on my own experience is that I think it's really important to understand what your organization needs and wants and expects from PR, because in my experience, that has been different depending on where I've worked. And I think you really need to sort of know what those objectives are and then understand what you're going to do to achieve them and how the KPIs that you have are going to be aligned to that, and then how you're going to report back on that. I think that's really key, and how you're going to prove the value of your work, because I do think it's an area where it can be a little bit more difficult, compared to other areas, I suppose, sometimes to really kind of prove that tangible value. But there are ways to do it. It's just about understanding how that kind of links back to the broader strategy. So my business, digital PR, for example, getting really good quality backlinks is really important as part of the kind of digital PR work that I do for supporting our broader SEO work, search engine optimization. So planning kind of proactive news generation, has to kind of link, that has to sort of link back. And so I think that's, it's kind of really important to kind of understand what's important for your organization and then how you kind of fit into that.
Lovely. I'll go to Darren next. What skills do you think somebody working today in the PR business needs?
Yeah, again, so many, aren't there? Based on kind of the roles that I advertise and how feel with kind of interim comms and PR staff, I think there was the big discussion, wasn't there, years back about, are we artists or are we scientists? And I always thought we had to be both. We've got the artistic, the creative side, which I think is really important in comms and PR. But we've also got the scientist side, so the kind of the research, the data, the data-informed comms. I think we need both. So I think that's important. I think, as Josie said, job descriptions just got bigger and bigger and bigger, haven't they? I've seen a few recently that they are large, and I think people want everything. So I think, you need to be able to go in and to create the comms and PR strategy, but you also need to be able to deliver it as well. So I think it is that really nice blend of being strategic, but also being a doer. I've had an interim job come in this week, and they've literally said, we want a strategic doer. And I think that encapsulates it really well. So I think it's someone that really gets the strategy side and can craft a really smart PR and comms plan, but then they can also deliver it and deliver some of the tactical bits and executions as well. So I think there's a little bit of everything. I think being able to prioritize in and amongst that is the trick. And I think that's the tricky bit. We've all probably been in that space where there's demand has kind of, overwhelmed us, and being able to do both and then prioritize within that is a real trick and a real skill.
Richard, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, Josie said it, but I'm going to invent a word to emphasize it. I think the thing you need to focus on now is your humanness. I know it's not a word, but AI is getting better and better and better. It's remarkably good at systems things, at structural things, at a lot of things that particularly junior people get asked to do. It's good at them, and it's a lot cheaper than you are. So how are you going to set yourself apart? And it comes back to a little bit of context here, and people who've been out of education won't realize just how bad it's got. But it's not just the pandemic. I think it probably goes back to the iPhone. We've created a generation that doesn't really particularly like going out, certainly doesn't like meeting people or talking to people, or having a social drink with people. I am the introvert's introvert, so I'm not being critical, but it's remarkable that we seem to be producing a generation of introverts. And this is a world, remember, of PR and comms that is pretty conventionally extroverts. You do need to be able to get on with people. And what I mean by that is it's the gaps between the meetings. It's the chats you have with people that you recognize you're a human, but the person you're talking to is a human. The chief executive officer is a human with doubts and problems and issues. They're not a superhuman, they're a human being. And if you can tap into that, tap into their fears and their uncertainties, that's your route to success in public relations. So please, your humanness, particularly at the junior level, because AI is eating up so many of those conventionally junior tasks.
There's some little hands floating up saying people like what you're saying. Yeah, Justine, what do you think of the
well, it cuts across both what Richard and what Josie has said, really, and I think summarises everything, is the ability to listen, because that's what AI doesn't do. And that is what people are, when you go into an organisation, if you're a manager or whatever, is to really listen, because as you say, we've got these massive long job descriptions now. They want everyone who can do anything, but actually the organisation doesn't really want that. They don't know what they want. So you need to be able to listen to what they're saying, what a manager is saying, what a CEO is saying, what is it that they're saying, and then take that. But actually really listening to, I learned to my cost. I was working on a really big project at one point, and the chair of the charity I was working with said they wanted this. We as the team, kind of the marketing and comm team, took that away and we reinterpreted it to mean something different that suited us better and suited what we thought we knew was best. And we took it back, and he said, no, that's not going to go. That's not what I want. And we did it 3 times. And then by the 3rd time, we just thought, let's just do what he said. You know, let him know he really does mean this. We tested and tested and tested. No, he really did mean this. And we did it, and we did what, it wasn't like doing what he said, but we, you know, took his direction, listened to it, understood where he was coming from, and shaped, you know, the project was hugely successful in the end. And it really worked, even though we had lots of reservations about it for very valid reasons, but it was just really listening. And we could have cut down, save some money, but we could have cut down in time as well. We could have got to that end point so much quicker if we just listened, really listened to what he was trying, what he was saying, and then took that instead of thinking we heard, reinterpreting it and doing something different anyway. So that ability to really listen to what people are saying, to get that get the message of, you know, what it is they're really wanting you to do or really wanting to achieve.
No, this is all very interesting, because you think, you know, the skills that you want to be able to handle social media channels, you want to be able to do SEO, but it's the softer skills that often get ignored. So no, it's really welcome to hear that. We're going to move on to the next question now. I mean, Darren, you've touched on it. What advice would you give someone wanting to move from a tactical role, you know, like maybe a press officer or internal comms or something like that, into a more strategic role? So it's sometimes quite hard to make that leap.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I think we've probably, many of us on the call, experienced that before. I think for me, the thing I always tried to do in my earlier career was I put my hand up and do the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. I just became a sponge. I would learn. So I think when I was in house, it's in the water industry actually, which is, it's a dirty word now, isn't it? But back then it seemed okay. And they were looking for someone to do the annual report, which was a dreaded job, which nobody wanted to do. And I thought, I'll give it a go because I'll learn lots. I'm a sponge. I want to catch up. I want to get better. And people in the team were like, are you crazy asking to do that? You know, it's a nightmare job. And it was. And I did it for them for the next 3 years. And all of that experience and doing new things and kind of showing that eagerness and willingness, I think can help to not single you out, but to just put you on a slightly different platform. So I think, yeah, being a sponge, doing the projects that other people kind of don't want to do, asking for responsibility. Now, sometimes you can then get lumbered with things that are kind of above your pay grade, but if you're up for that, asking for some extra responsibility and looking for that extra work. Now, of course, that depends then. This was pre-kids. So when you've got kids, you know, you're in a slightly different phase of your life then, aren't you, if you've got children. But if you can, you know, kind of do the extra hours, do the extra work, take on that extra responsibility, it worked for me. And I think if I'd not done that, I probably wouldn't have got those more senior roles. And then I think it's just, you know, that being smart about it, you know, being smart about the things that you do ask to get involved with, to take on that extra responsibility, kind of trying to future-proof a little bit and look at, you know, where the opportunities will be coming in future years. So align yourself with work and projects and skills that are going to probably give you the best chance of success over the next, you know, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, it's really helpful. No, I've done 2 annual reports. They are a nightmare, but you do learn a lot. Josie, now you were on the socially mobile course run by the Waddingtons, weren't you? As was Justine. So, I mean, just you know, how difficult or easy has it been for you to move from tactical into strategic work?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, going back to what I said earlier, you know, it's been a bit of a squiggly career path. I had my first job where I was doing PR as part of that probably about 10 years ago, but then I went into an organisation after that where it was much bigger, and therefore roles were kind of narrower and segmented, and so I didn't get to do any of that for the sort of 6 years that I was there. So it's, you know, it has been a bit sort of back and forth in terms of what I've done. When I was, you know, thinking about this, about moving from, you know, tactical into more strategic, what I would advise, I guess, is try to do a bit of a skill gap analysis and, you know, do a bit of kind of self-reflection on where you think you might have room to develop. And it might be that a mentor or someone else in the industry might need to help you look at that. Sometimes it can also be helpful to look at the kind of job description of a job that you want, and really have that kind of critical view on where are the things that you're missing, or you feel you need to develop. And then it's kind of easier, I think, to sort of put the pieces together of where you might be able to try and get that experience. Again, kind of thinking creatively about, is there something within your own business where you're perhaps, helping out on a kind of lateral project? Is there a secondment opportunity? If it's a bigger organization, is there something you could do outside of work, whether it's a volunteering role, a trustee role, something else that might sort of give you that experience? Are there any opportunities even through the CIPR, for example? So I think that's what I would do, I guess, to try and sort of join those dots. And again, I think trying to find a mentor, someone you admire that's kind of a couple of steps ahead. Even if it's a case of trying to sort of connect with, find that person and kind of connect with them via LinkedIn, that can be a good way just to try and get a bit of additional self-development to kind of bridge the gap.
Lovely. Justine, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the Socially Mobile course? Because well,
no, I tell you, what I wanted to say is another tip in terms of moving forward is, especially if you're working in a large organisation, quite siloed role, the opportunity to move up can be more challenging. There may be fewer opportunities. To look sideways, to move to a smaller organisation. Yes, they have fewer, smaller teams, but you can move, go small to go big. And my brother-in-law is chief exec of an organisation, and that was the advice he gave me decades ago. Was I was thinking, how did you get to where you are? And he said, I went small. He was in a big manufacturing company, and he wanted to progress, and he wasn't going to go up there because you get in the more pyramid type organisations, there are fewer opportunities to move up. So he went small, and that meant that he could take a step up. And then he was able to move on to a bigger role in a bigger organisation, but at a more senior level. So that thinking laterally, don't just think you've got to continue where you are. If you're in this type of organisation, I want to have, 6 members of staff in my team. Don't think like that, because there are fewer opportunities. So think about moving sideways. Or to a small organisation, because that will give me more exposure and more chance to step up. And yeah, I'm another annual report person as well. I do been doing them for the last 10 years. It's a fantastic tool, and know wherever you go, no one wants to do it. But who does it give you exposure to? I work with the chief exec, I work with the chair of trustees, I work with all the directors, and I was doing that from quite a junior level, and I've done it for 3 or 4 organisations now, and that helped me. That gave me exposure. It meant my skills and talents were recognised, but there was just more support for me in terms of taking on other projects, and people had confidence in me to lead other activities as well, because they've seen me do a job in there. They've seen my name. They've met with me. They knew I could do that. So yeah, don't ever dismiss the humble annual report.
No, I'm going to give a little bit of a plug here for the chartership, CIPR chartership, because it is very good at getting you to think more strategically. They give you various assignments, and then you're in group interviews. I did it about 6 years ago, and it's surprising when you are forced to think about what experience you've had in leadership and strategy, that if you think and look at your background, it's there. You just need to sort of bring it out and explain it. Right, moving sectors is the next question. How easy or difficult is it to move sectors? Richard, have you got something on? Because you've moved into the education sector from technology, haven't you? Was that easy?
It's very easy to move when you're very senior. All right. If you've been a director of comms for government, you can be a director of comms in the private sector, because the technical detail is done by other people. The advisory role for senior managers, the thing Justine was talking about, that you can do at a junior level by taking on a project like an annual report. The advisory role is universal. So at a senior level, you can move sectors because been there, done that, got the broad shoulders. At a junior level, you can move sectors because you're looking to gain experience, try lots of different things, all right? Kiss lots of frogs in your 20s, you know, just try it out. Most people don't see that the majority of public relations roles are in-house. The ones Darren's talking about are in-house in the public sector. Now, you know, the type of students I've taught, those roles are invisible. They don't see in-house and they don't see public sector. They see consultancy roles in the private sector, but that's the minority of roles in our industry. So look in-house, look across sectors. Justine's talked about the third sector, working with charities, great experience. And also don't dismiss internal comms. I think there was someone commenting on the chatbot, they don't have media experience. Can they do a PR job? Well, internal comms doesn't need any media experience. So, you know, think laterally. Not everyone wants those external roles. There are great internal roles as well. I think in the middle, it's quite hard to change sectors, and that's because you can't apply for any job. You can only ever apply for the next job. And the next job is based on what you've previously been doing. So, you know, you have to kind of move laterally. But I think we're all adept at finding our own way. No one else is going to do it for you. There's a very good question in the Q&A. I only just checked, but University of Oxford are looking for structures and pathways for their many comms people. Some organisations can create structures. Government Communication Service is probably best at this, but most comms teams are very small, so they don't have a structured approach to career development. That means we, with our friends and allies in the CIPR network and so on, we have to do it ourselves. And sometimes, as I say, let it be messy. Try out lots of things. See which one works for you.
Justine, because you've moved from, is it voluntary sector? You've moved into...
Yeah, I moved. I'm actually
Commercial,
just, I did work for a council for a while as well. So yeah, I think I've worked in every sector. And how I managed that was to use my interests. So, for example, I'm very interested in sport, obviously, and I was working for a sporting organisation, charity, and I moved into the travel sector that was aligned with sport. So that gave me that leap. So don't just think you've got to, I've worked in a council, I can't do anything else. So I've worked in a charity, I can't do anything else. So think about where that leads you. So, you know, if you have been working in an environmental charity, that could lead you into other spheres because you're passionate about, wildlife or the environment or something. And there will be commercial sector which have roles which are relevant. So I don't think it's got to be, once you're in one lane, you've always got to stay in that lane. And I mean, it is more unusual to move from charity into commercial sector, but I've done that twice because I aligned with things that I was really, really interested in that the commercial business would working in. So I was able to align that. I know a lot of people have moved from the commercial sector into the charity sector because they utilise, they've obviously had more exposure there. You're working with budgets there, things like that. You've been able to try more things than perhaps you'll be able to do within the charity sector. So they bring that knowledge and that experience with them. So I know a lot of people have made that leap. But again, it's to do with a personal interest. Worked and recruited in the charity sector as well. It's not just the will I want to do good. That doesn't cut it anymore. Charity sector is really, really competitive when it comes to comms and marketing. A lot of people want to work in that sector. So just a desire to work for an organisation with purpose doesn't cut it. You need to have a genuine interest in that, the aims and objectives of that charity, and if you can back that up with voluntary work or personal experience, whatever, that's what will get you that job. So you can move that way, but think about your interest. And again, you can move the other way. If you worked in the charity sector, look at B Corps. You know, there are a lot of B Corps now up there. You could make the move into the commercial sector that way. So you can move, and that's how I did with the Unity Lines and my interest. But there are ways to move between both. But they've got to be a purpose behind it. Got to be a reason. You know, moving. I couldn't have moved into the manufacturing sector very easily, and I couldn't have moved into the car sector very easily. I'm not interested in that. I've got no passion to do that. But they just weren't. You know, my interest didn't align with that. I didn't have anything to call on to move that way. To look at your interests and where you are and what you're doing.
Right. Moving to the end, because I want to leave a bit of time for questions. Just this question is just for Darren. What makes a CV or LinkedIn profile stand out?
So I would say, in my experience, CV, we've literally got seconds to stand out, haven't we? I reckon some people are doing paper sifts of 100 CVs plus. You might get 20 seconds if you're lucky. So I think you've got to really make the top third of the first page of your CV stand out massively. You know, that's where to put your key achievements. Don't block it up with, you know, details like your address or your age or your qualifications. I would make that your key achievements, because that might be the only bit that somebody doing that very quick paper sift does. That's wrong, of course. We should look at everybody's CVs properly, but I think in reality, everyone's, you know, short of time, aren't they? I think attention spans have fallen since COVID, haven't they? So I think that plays into it. So make that top third the most important part of your CV. Really sell yourself. I think LinkedIn, I would say lots of things. Be really active. I think LinkedIn is one of the few sort of social media algorithms still that it feels like it rewards you for your frequency. So the more active you are, I think the more your content and posts get kind of pumped up to the top of the feed. It doesn't mean be spammy and, you know, do 50 posts a day, but be really, really active. Be connecting every time you go on LinkedIn, make new connections, look around. Who do you want to connect with? Who do you want to be friends with? Who do you want to learn from? So, you know, every time you're on LinkedIn, you know, and you should be going on LinkedIn every day, I would say, every work day. Do 10 minutes a day, make 10 new connections every day, 50 a week, you know, 200 a month. Build it, because there's all sorts of stats out there, isn't there, about, you know, your next job will probably come through LinkedIn and it might not even be advertised. So I think it's really important. Don't be shy, be engaging, ask questions, ask for help, and be really, really proactive. And just, as the kids would say, work LinkedIn hard.
I think we'll go on to questions now, and then at the end, I'm going to ask people just to say what has been your most valuable learning experience. But I'm just looking at the chat box now. Right. Well, several comments more than chat. One of this with one here with very little PR experience. Are there any courses or CPD recommendations for people? Well, there are lots. Yeah. Richard, do you want to take that one?
Well, start with free things. Darren has built a community. Now it's primarily focused on roles in local government and the public services, but it's full of resources, free resources. I've been contributing to PR Academy's website, which has lots and lots of learning resources. So, you know, if you want a free degree, you know, come on a course, come and read some things, come and connect with people who are offering you insights for free. CIPR, similarly, join as a member, Influence Magazine online, lots and lots of free resources for starters.
Okay, next one. What do you think will be the fastest growing PR marketing comms jobs in the next few years, and which will decline? Who wants to? Darren, do you want to chip in on that one?
Yeah, I did put something in the comments just really quickly. It's not new, but I think data and insight is really, really important. Just in terms of, you know, I heard a quote earlier in the week. Somebody said, "No data, no comms," and I think that's something we could all kind of live by, isn't it? We need the data and the insights, the benchmarking, the objectives, the smart objective setting to be able to even evaluate if something's worked at the end. The more we can do that, the more data we can bring to it. I think the easier the chance of trying to get the ear of kind of senior leaders and leadership teams. So I think it's not new, but I think I've certainly seen that really, really growing. AI is an obvious thing to say, but I think that's distinguishing where AI, as Richard said, can really, really help us, and actually where it is still not necessarily the answer. And I think being able to judge those two things would be quite tricky. But yeah, be all over data, make data your friend. I used to hate spreadsheets. I still do, really, but be better with spreadsheets and data if you're not already, I would say.
There's another one here. I'm going to ask Josie this one. What do you think are some future trends to be aware of in terms of agency or in-house careers?
I mean, I would definitely second what Darren said around data and insight and how important that is. My experience has been in-house rather than agency, so I probably couldn't sort of talk across both of those. But I think in terms of in-house, it kind of comes back to that tangible value. I think particularly in a trickier marketplace where, as I said, comms is, can often be a harder thing to sort of prove that tangible value. So I do think there is something around how you use data and also how you storytell with it. I kind of feel similarly to Darren in that I don't love spreadsheets. I don't kind of love that side of things, but I do think if you can sort of turn it on its head and think about how that can help you tell a story in a way that is going to make other people in your organization, understand it better and, be excited by that, then I think it's it's kind of a really useful tool. So that's what I'd say around that.
Another one here. We'll just do one more. What kind of data should we be collecting using apart from counting coverage? Anybody want to chip in on that one?
I mean, it shouldn't just be counting coverage is nothing, really, because if that's all crap coverage, then it's not going to really do you any good. So you need to count the sentiment behind that. So understanding where people are talking about you, because if you're getting a load of coverage in my local paper, the Ross Gazette, that's not going to do you any good unless your market's in the Ross Gazette or your audience is in the Ross in that area. So you need to know where you need to attach value to that. To coverage. So, one piece of coverage in, for example, the Financial Times, if that's the primary audience, understanding where your audience is, who is it you're trying to talk to, and how many opportunities to see is that audience getting. So that can be through coverage in relevant media. So you would assign in a higher ranking media. I wouldn't be talking about something that got into a local press or into a very small. But it could be if it was a very small journal, but highly targeted at your key audience and had a great readership. Then that's fantastic. So you need to know who you're talking to and what the sentiment is that coverage is. So is it positive? Is it negative? Is it generated via a press release, or is it generated via industry analysts looking at what you're doing and commenting on what you're doing as well? So that kind of, is it how much of it down to your efforts and how much is it down to general, growing awareness, which you are contributing to. And yeah, kind of brand awareness comes into comms. It's not just your marketing and brand team. Brand awareness is down to you, because the stories you're putting out, the information you're sharing, that is helping to build a hopefully positive impression of the brand within the mind of your audience. So looking at brand awareness and how that is tracking, measuring the sentiment in your press coverage as well, and where your press coverage or your coverage is occurring online, journal, in news, where is it coming on TV, where is it happening, and then assign that priority depending on the value to your audience of that coverage, not the value to you, value to your audience.
Right, we've got about 3 minutes left, or 5 minutes left. quick roundup. Question, what's been your most valuable learning experience? I'll kick off with Richard.
Never stop learning.
Right, that's it. Okay. Josie.
So you touched on Socially Mobile, Anne, and I just wanted to talk about that because I've been through the programme. If anyone wants to know more about it, feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to chat about it afterwards, given we sort of got limited time. But for me, that's been a really valuable learning experience. It was a 10-week programme, series of online lessons, weekly assignments based on reflective learning, and it's given me, great kind of teaching from really brilliant kind of range of sort of lecturers across the industry, but more than that, it's given me a great network. It's given me other opportunities. For example, I've worked on a research project recently with Stephen Waddington, who runs a program looking at missing women in PR and kind of mid career roles. So it's been a really great way to expand both my kind of core skills, but also sort of build a network. I think, finding a network is really important for kind of being able to add to what you're getting from your kind of day-to-day role.
Darren, your learning experience.
2 quick ones. Number one, never let recruitment agencies tell you that you're not good enough to do a job, because we've probably all heard that at some point. They don't always know best, so don't listen to recruitment agencies. And 2, it's easy to say, harder to do, but it's so true. Don't stay anywhere where you're unhappy. And there's been a couple of comments in the chat already. It's easy for us to say, get out, but there's plenty of jobs out, there's plenty of opportunities. Be selfish with your own personal time. Make the most of those opportunities. If you've got the Sunday nights, get out. I've had the Sunday nights, so I did get out.
And Justine.
Mine is a bit similar to Darren's. Is think about you've got to know your audience. You have got to know who you're talking to. Because if you don't know that, then it doesn't matter what you say, because whatever you say has got to mean something to your audience. It's got to be something they're interested in, or you've got what do they need? But no matter how wonderful that press release is, no matter how great that feature is, no matter how great that blog post is, no matter how great that piece of content is, unless it's something that your audience is interested in or needs in their lives, it's solving a problem of theirs, they won't read it and they won't take any notice. So know your audience inside out.
I think that's it. We're now just coming up to past. Has anybody got a sort of final thought? I'm just looking at the questions. I think we've dealt them all. Yes. Oops.
Well, can I jump in with that? There is a final thought. This kind of summarizes what I've learned in this session. I think if you're only talking about backlinks, if you're only talking about coverage, if you're only talking about content, that's good. That's part of the equation. You're managing downwards. But I think what we've heard today is start looking the other way. Start managing upwards. What's your boss or your boss's boss worried about? Because you'll find they're not worried about backlinks, they're not worried about coverage, they're not worried about content. That's a means to something else. So what are they worried about? Start managing upwards, not just doing a job by managing downwards.
Right. On that note, I think I'll say thank you so much to all 4 of you. I hope those of you who've participated, I hope you've got I've certainly got a lot out of this, things that I hadn't thought about before. Oh, we've got lots of hearts and hands flying up there, which is really good. The session will be, and some, masses of them, thumbs up and more hearts going. The session is going to be recorded. It has been recorded. I will be doing a sort of roundup of top tips for LinkedIn. And don't forget to claim your 5 CIPR points. And thank you very much to the panelists, and thank you very much for all those wonderful people who've participated. Okay, we're done. Thank you so much.
Thanks all.
Thank you.